Hi, everyone. It is Marilyn Alori, and welcome to Who Can It Be Now? And today we're going to have a very fascinating conversation with two people I adore and love. And it's going to really, I feel, benefit all of you because we're going to be talking about next level living, not necessarily my program, but how to live your next level life. So even before we started this recording, we started talking about things. And I was like, oh no, we need to be recording this. Because the things that the three of us are doing, and also other people that I know in Next Level Living and other peers that I have, it's very hard to explain in a linear fashion what we do and how we do it and how it helps us in our own life and how it can help you. And I really wanted to bring Donna and Monique on today to have this conversation with them because we always have very, very in-depth, multidimensional, expansive conversations that grow each one of us, me and all of us. And it's really important that we start bringing these conversations to everybody, to our communities, so that one, you could see what's possible because it's hard to explain what goes on behind the closed doors. Two, you can start thinking out of the box. And three, you can really have a more expansive experience in your life because it's so much more than what you're seeing in a linear fashion. Now, they're going to talk in a minute, and we're all just going to have a different conversation, which I think is going to be really great for you guys. And I'm going to tell you a tiny bit about them, but I'm going to tell you about them from my perspective of my experience with them. And then I'm going to have them, whether we share it in the beginning or at the end, I'm going to have them share how you can find them because they're both brilliant at what they do. And I really feel that it's my job as a medium, as a teacher, as a community leader to really bring responsible, integral people to all of you because I see so much nonsense out there and so many people taking advantage of vulnerable people that I want to really be able to bring more and more of the people that I work with and know to all of you so that you can make better choices and decisions. So when you're struggling with something and you're in an incredible amount of pain, you're going to somebody who really cares about you and wants to help you. And I can say both Donna and Monique are that a million times over. So Donna will tell you a little bit more about her, but my experience of Donna, she's been in my program Next Level Living. I'm also doing one-on-one coaching with her. She's brilliant. And she's channeling the boardroom, which has just been unbelievably amazing to experience. She's done a few readings for me, and I'm very picky about who does readings for me, but I'm also been reading her book that she's coming out with, and she's creating a whole body of work around this. And it's something I haven't seen before. And the advice is so stellar and on point that it's really been very beneficial for me to experience. And then Monique, and I'm going to have them say their last names because I'm going to just butcher the heck out of that. Monique's an incredible healer. She's more than that, a coach. She's a boundary coach. She's very expansive thinker. She's a coach in Soul Finder Academy. And Monique and I have a lot of conversations back and forth because we're always like playing with different ideas. And it's really great to be able to like bounce things off of Monique and be able to have conversations with people. And Donna's the same way, have conversations with people that are on the same realm as you and can really help you to grow into an even greater, bigger, more enlightened person. And the other thing I want to share about Monique is recording this September 7th, 2023. And my dog had surgery 2 days ago. My dog is doing amazing. Monique has been working on my dog, and I didn't even realize how much she was working on. I'm like, oh my goodness. It was a gnarly surgery, and Venus is doing incredible. So I can definitely speak to her healing work as well. So Donna, Monique, why don't you tell a tiny bit about yourselves, and then we'll just jump into conversation and whatever you want them to know about you so that they can have an incredible, like, I just want you guys to get out in the world so people know who you are. Donna, you can go first, and then Monique.
Okay, so I
And you
guess
tell your
probably
name too.
okay. So it is a hard name, Donna Di Domenico, and that was really hard to adjust to from my maiden name, which was a 4-lettered last name. So back then we wrote checks, and my name never fit on a check when I first got married. So, but anyway, I think one of the things about me that I'd like everybody to know is that I am really not this woo-woo kind of person. I am a past corporate executive who really worked in the world of leadership for a long time. And as I was working through leadership, I was learning so much, but it really kind of blossomed. All of my abilities really blossomed when I left the corporate world. And what I found was that when I was in the corporate world, people just weren't hearing me. And when I left, all of a sudden this opened up because I now had this voice. I was no longer looked at, kind of in a hierarchy or a certain role or perspectives of what a person should be like. I now was me. And all of my abilities just kind of came out of that. So, Marilyn, you said I channel the boardroom. The boardroom is a unique group of past executives, innovators, inventors, past presidents. And as Monique found out yesterday, some of them are very humorous because some are comedians and entertainers of different types, and they bring information to me. And it's really incredible the type of information they bring to me because they set business. It's about the changes that we need to make in the world in the future, and their insight on how leaders need to lead and be differently and act differently in the future, be different from what we are today, and how we need to move away from the old command and control hierarchical organizations and get into this place where you just unite people for common goals to get good for everyone. Everyone can be good. Everyone can have good. And so all the messages that drive me and that I share come from that vein with them.
I love that. Thank you, Donna. And it's so important, as we know. So we'll go further into that conversation. And I love the way you explained what it is that you're doing today, which is great. Thank you. Especially the not hearing you and then being able to finally experience yourself in this magical way. Monique.
Yes. Okay. My last name is Garceau, Monique Garceau, which is also a mouthful. But it's interesting that you have Donna and me on together because we have similar backgrounds in the sense that I was a lawyer for quite, I don't know, almost 2 decades, 15, 16, 17 years, and enjoyed it up to a point, but I knew I wasn't living my full potential. But I didn't have the ability to recognize that on my own and to get out. So my body told me when it was time to get out because it basically gave out on me and I became very, very ill. And through that process is how I started understanding and learning about the ability, A, for us to heal ourselves, but B, what potential we all have to tap into what's available to us, which is everything. And that's how I started working. I'm a frequency healer. When I started understanding my body wouldn't receive medication and supplements and the traditional way of treatment, my body wouldn't receive it. And so it was the kind of the segue into how I started using tools in a different way. And I started accessing the information of everything on this earth without having to use the physical object. And so it sounds kind of complicated. It sounds kind of woo, but the reality is everything is energy. And so we have the ability to tap into that energy before it becomes physical. And that's what I do. And my dream is to have people really understand how powerful they are. And it doesn't matter what we do, even if we are lawyers, even if we are in the corporate world, we still have that ability to think beyond that one-dimensional approach, which I lived for so many years, and it worked for me until it didn't. But we are at this, for me at least, we are at this amazing time in human evolution where there's so much opening to us that we have the ability to tap into and to recognize in our everyday lives. It doesn't have to be because we're sitting on top of a mountain or that we've had some, orgasmic experience in life. It is the day-to-day life. It is the drinking our coffee. It's the getting in the shower. It's the simple little things of life that contain so much information and so much opportunity for us to expand our lives.
I love that. Thank you. There's so much that you said there. And one of the things that definitely rang out for me the most was that we're all very powerful and understanding what powerful means. So what I would like to bring to the table right now is, what is your goal? What does power mean to you? Let's start there. What does power mean to you guys?
So for me, power is tapping into your own essence. What it doesn't matter what, whether it's people call it their higher selves, their soul, it's our divine ability to create our lives how we want, and without giving it away. And what we've done throughout mankind for so many years is we've allowed other people to dictate our belief systems, to dictate how we live, to dictate our thought process without checking in with ourselves. Like, does this really resonate? So for me, the power is when we say, no, I don't need any of that unless I want to listen to it, but I'm going to go inside and see what works for me, regardless of who is saying what or doing what outside of me.
Yeah, I like that. Donna?
Yeah, I was going to say something very similar, Monique, in that for me, power is within, right? And so it's knowing who I am, what's important to me, what are the things that I am working towards that are driving me, that are, that I'm based on. Really, it's all of my values, my belief system. It's why I make the decisions I make. All of that is my internal power. And through my internal power, I am the leader of me, and I make my choices for me.
Why, I love the way you both are describing it, and I agree with both of you, so I'm not going to really add to it. And most people know my opinion about these things anyway, because if they listen to this podcast. Why do you think people struggle with getting into their power or getting out of the box and listening to themselves? Like, why is there such a struggle out there for people to trust?
Okay, I'll start this one. Is that, I really believe that we are trained to listen to others, right? And that we are trained to hear the thoughts of others and believe that when somebody speaks to us, that they're telling us our truth and it should be in our higher good. And what we have to really learn is that the only one who knows that for us is us, right? It's what we know inside of us, and we have to be able to trust in ourselves first. And that has to be the highest good for us. And so, as we're going on, like, I'll go back to developing into my career, it was always about, what does this role look like? What does a person who does this look like? How does a professional act? And I'll even go as far to share with you a comment. Somebody once said to me, oh, well, she can't go into a different role because she's from New Jersey. She's a Jersey girl.
Oh, yeah. I've gotten that with Brooklyn.
Right. And it's like, they judged me, not even knowing me, because of something that they culturally thought about New Jersey that had nothing to do with me. And if I had let that stop me, I would have never have gotten anywhere. So I think it's that, people, one is that, you listen to what others tell you. And then the second piece of it is you don't have enough faith in yourself to say, nope, I don't need that. I don't need that advice. It's not true for me. I need to stand in my power and say, this is the way I'm going to go.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had that with Brooklyn a lot, especially as an actress. And I worked so hard on trying to get rid of the dialect, and it was very difficult. And I always got, cast as Brooklyn, and I allowed it to affect me in the business. I allowed the labeling of Brooklyn to affect me. There was something you just said that I was going to ask Monique, but I'll just see what Monique wants to add. So I'll make sure I make notes because I want to keep the conversation flowing. What did you want to add to that or bring to
I agree with so much. And yeah, I mean, we're conditioned to believe that other people know best for us. And to undo that conditioning takes some self-examination and self-reflection. And for me, and I know I preach this so much, but there's this huge responsibility piece that is very scary for so many people, because it's asking them a lot to all of a sudden step into being responsible for themselves and how they're living. And that it's easier for so many people not to step into that space, to just keep living the way they're living, keep putting the boxes, the blinders, keep turning to whatever they turn to alleviate, the discomfort when it comes up. And I know, because that's how I lived. And some people go through life like that, and that's fine, and that works for them. But other people, they keep hitting up against walls and say, why am I hitting this wall? Well, you're hitting this wall because you're making the same choice over and over and over. And part of that choice is allowing other people to dictate how you live. And so, Marilyn, it's getting into that space of saying, okay, well, this may not be fun, it may not always be comfortable, but I am willing to start tearing apart and digging in and releasing and changing the way that I make choices.
So I would think it's interesting, probably each one of us had a moment in time where that clicked for us, right? Where we stopped. I don't know if I know more Monique, Don, I'm assuming you had the same experience where you decided I'm not going to conform anymore. I don't know if you did, but the moment of time for me, and I'm wondering, and I'm pretty sure for you two too, was hitting rock bottom or saying, that's it. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not doing it this way. I have to change. Do you know what that moment in time was? And what was the change that you created? Because what I want to understand is why people don't do it. And next level living is not for people who don't want to do it. You have to do the work. But I think people are very afraid of doing the work, one, for seeing themselves truthfully, and they think it's hard, but it's actually easier. It's harder when you keep just coming around in circles and hitting the wall. So anything you want to speak to that? And maybe the person out there who's listening, who's like, we can't speak to victims. We all know this, right? The victim who wants to stay in victim consciousness is never going to change. But the person who's thinking and dreaming big, who knows that there's something greater for them, how can we help them? And maybe it'll get into the person with the victim consciousness, because a lot of people with victim consciousness don't even realize they're there. But the person who is sitting there going, okay, nothing in my life is changing. I'm trying everything. What else can I do? That person, like, I know I threw out a bunch of questions. So whatever is feeding into you guys, just share. It doesn't matter. We'll see what happens.
Okay. Monique, you want to go?
Yeah, I'll go. So from my perspective, for people like, who are in that space, I think it's really important to surround yourself with groups like NLL or similar groups, because to do this kind of work and to be able to change your perspective is sometimes hard, because you can't see beyond your perspective, right? But when you have other people who are swimming in the same kind of pool of water as you, they're mirrors, and it gives you the opportunity to say, oh, wait, I never thought of about that. Or, oh goodness, so-and-so just shared that or said that, and it opened something up in me I didn't recognize. So for me, that is such an important piece, because I think going this road alone and saying I can do this on my own, at least for me and where I come from, was not possible.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Donna, what did you want to share with that?
Yeah, so, I was always a person who was very independent. I had confidence. And sometimes maybe too much. But as I got older and was working through the work world, I felt a lot of it being robbed from me, right? And I started to conform, and I could actually see, and I was observing myself switch from making decisions that were right to me to making decisions that were right for my family, making decisions that were right for my parents, put whoever in that box. Decisions were always for somebody else. And it became a point where I just started to take the back seat to my own life. And there was this point where, I got towards the end of working in corporate, where I just realized that I was a shell of the person that I really was. And it was very freeing once I realized that, because I was like, yeah, I used to have so much gumption and so, be out there, and I didn't care. And now all of a sudden I'm trying to conform all the time. That is kind of the point where I started to gradually make the decisions. And so even though that spark was in me, it still took me time and steps to get to the point where I took control again and took my power back and said, okay, I'm going to do the things that are right for me now. And I'm going to stop being in the backseat. I'm going to start driving again, and I'm going to move forward with force. And Marilyn, I was laughing when Monique talked, because we were talking about NLL, and it was like, yeah, I got referred to you for initially, And I just joined Membership for Your Soul. I think I said that right. And and I started doing all the training. I did every training course that you had out there. I just was in there doing training all the time, because now I had this like yearning to learn as much as I could about as many things as I could. And I coincidentally came across a message that you had put out about NLL and starting up NLL. And that was like the light bulb for me that went off. It was like, oh my God, that's my calling. I got to talk to this woman. She's got this for me. And so I remember I reached out to you in email. Didn't know you. You didn't know me. And I was only in the group for like maybe a month, not even. And you responded back to me. I was like, oh my God, she responded back to me. Wow. And then we started an exchange and I joined NLL. That was a real turning point for me. Just like Monique said, it was, I started to hear now with people who have thoughts like me, have some of the same challenges I have, and want to hear them get over a hurdle that they might be facing. I now have inspiration to get over a hurdle. But the best part of it is the dialogues, right, that we're having, and we've started talking offline and having different kinds of conversations. And that is so meaningful in development because, in my normal day, I'm not challenged the same way, right? I'm not talking to the same types of people. But when I'm with the group, whoa, I'm at a whole different level. I feel like I'm flying sometimes, and I am actually, and I just had another conversation with a friend of mine who we used to be co-workers, never knew we had this kind of common thread between us about spiritual abilities and things. And we just said, like, we have to spend more time together because we raise each other up. Our vibrational levels increase in these types of conversations. And so I guess my advice, though, that I'm informally giving now is that for those who are conflicted or don't think they can do it or are looking for reasons not to, go higher. Talk to people who are or a little bit higher in their abilities than you are. So you're constantly raising up. And those were some decisions that I really had to make because there were people that I left behind who were pulling me down, and that I was always coaching them, but then I didn't have anybody pulling me, right? And so now with the group, I have people constantly inspiring me for growth. You're constantly inspiring me for growth. Monique is constantly inspiring me for growth. So now I have this whole different level, and I keep on looking for more and more and more to go up, to elevate higher.
There's so much you said there. And I think one of the things I want to highlight before we get into the next conversation, which is in line with this, is being around people who support your growth and going up, see you even bigger than you see yourself. And without ego or anything. I don't think that there's any ego I've seen exist in this particular group, because I know that I've released a lot of my own personal ego, because when you're in mediumship, and you're talking to deceased people and channeling, there's like this bucking out there in the system, at least it used to be, where I'm better than you. I speak to celebrities. I'm this, I'm that. And it's like, no, we can all be that. And we can all be more than that. And when we get into this playing field of, like, that's what I love about the program, is that in any program that we're in, what I love about people like us, let's talk about that, is that we're not trying to say, I'm better than you. We're inviting, let's be great together. And I think that's really important. Monique, I'm sure you have something you want to say about that, but I want to ask something, and then you can say something about it too. I want to talk about the people there are people out there that don't think they're ready for something, or they don't think they're ready for something. I want to talk a little bit about that, but I also want to talk about playing in the field of possibilities. No, this is what I want. This is the question I have. I knew it was in there and I got lost. Now it's gone again. How do you live a normal life yet have these abilities? That's my question, because we constantly talk about this. And yes, we say there's a group that people we can go to and talk about it. But Donna's married with a family. Monique is living in, I'm not going to talk too much about your personal life, but she's got her own personal life with her family and everything like that. And I play tennis with people that we're never going to have this conversation about black holes and going into space and no time and fields of possibilities. So how do you navigate? How would you suggest someone navigates life while they open up to all these gifts? And Monique, you can go, whatever, it doesn't matter. If you have something else you want to say to what we already said.
No. This is such an interesting topic because it's something that I know I struggled with at first, because what I was doing and who I was, there was such a dichotomy between the two. But I think once I really started to understand, there doesn't have to be a separation with any of it. And for me, this is where the daily living becomes so important. Just to start recognizing that the magic is in everything. It doesn't have to be in something big and, a supernova exploding. And so it's just being ourselves with other people. I don't have to, look, my family doesn't talk about this. I don't have to do that with them, but I can just still be myself and be true to who I am in front of them without having to say, oh, well, this is the way I view it. Just simply being kind, just simply being respectful, just simply not sitting in a judgmental state, which is not always easy, or a state of saying someone's right or someone's wrong, because for me, there is no such thing. And so it's practicing what we do as a group, but then bringing it out into the everyday world and understanding. And this was really difficult for me until one day when we were in a meditation, actually in NLL, my guides showed me something. Every person is in their own, every being, not even every person, is in their own energetic experience. So, and I don't recognize that all the time. If I'm driving down the road and someone's cut me off, and we have horrible drivers where I live, and I get into the cursing and all that, and then I step back and they're like, Monique, you have no idea what's going on with that person. They maybe didn't see the red light they just ran, or their mother could be in the hospital dying, and whatever, it doesn't matter. They're in their own energetic experience. So once I really start to understand that, and it releases so much of expectation, of disappointment, of, road rage, of resentment, whatever. And it's like, you know what? It's their life, their choice, their path. I just have to make peace with that.
Yeah. I like that. And I love the fact of something you said about just being yourself and being true to yourself, but it's not like you have to go around telling everybody what it is you do, how you do it, fix it this way, that way. It's just, and I like that too. I do the same thing. Donna, do you have anything you want to say about that?
No, I was laughing with the whole driving piece of it, because I do live up to the stereotype of the New Jersey driver. But, one of the things that's really brought me through lately is that piece of having understanding for other people. And, I don't do the road rage, and I don't have to curse at anybody. And I don't have that need any longer. And I just, kind of say, well, okay, I'm flowing along. It's about me and my flow, and where am I? And if I'm going to disrupt that flow, I'll go into a rage or something. It just impacts me, because the other person's long gone already, right? So I'm just impacting myself and how I'm feeling that day. If I just let it go and acknowledge, okay, well, that was not great, but let's move on. And it's good. And I think the other piece is about the discernment and not judgment, right? We make decisions with discernment, but not with judgment.
So let's talk about looking at things in life. We when we started this call, we talked about, one, how do we describe what we do? It's very difficult that's why we're bringing these conversations to my podcast. It's very difficult to describe what we do, because it's indescribable. It's energetic. We meet the person where they're at and we do the work. That's number one. And number two, we realized we were all wearing black, and Donna and Monique don't wear black, but I wear black. And it was interesting because we've been talking about black holes and going into black color, and Monique brought that up yesterday. Something came to her. I want the question I really have to pose to both of you is something I think we all do. And I want to know your experience of this and how you would teach someone else to do it. I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, that we take everyday objects in life and we see it so much more expansive than maybe how it's defined in the 3D world, for a lack of a better word, like the color black, like the leaf on a tree, like a simple water bowl. There's always something more. So can you talk about like how you are in the world with that multidimensional kind of understanding of things? Do you know what I'm saying? And how that informs your life and informs your work, and how that can help other people. Like for me, I don't look at anything linear. Everything has got so much more to it.
Yeah, I have so much to say, but I'll try to be succinct. Okay, for me, first
I
of
don't
all,
think it matters if it's succinct or not. Just say
okay, everything is a belief system. It's
Yeah.
simply a belief system. So when we say black is black, there's a belief system around black. And who the hell made that up? I don't have the slightest idea. But once someone started saying what it was, and people started feeding into, oh, this is black, and it's been passed on. So now everyone agrees, what we're wearing is black. Who the hell really knows, right? But for me, what's so wonderful is that once you start digging into and examining, I mean, I'm looking around on my desk, the different things that we have, there's so much more to everything. And once we start understanding, we have the ability to I'm going to just lift this up. Okay, this is an old, I don't know, some kind of Chinese belt buckle that it's a necklace. I've never worn it. I got it simply because I was doing frequency work and I was guided to it to use for use on myself. Now, and it's been amazing. It has amazing frequencies to it. Most people would say, oh, it's just some funky old necklace, whatever. But recognizing that it has so many other energies to it, just simply because I can't see it, does not mean it does not have a lot of potential. And so I think it's what are the stories we tell ourselves about how things really are? And it's starting to recognize, oh, that's a story I tell myself. It's simply a necklace. No, it's simply a necklace and a million things more. And so, and I know, see, this is where I start to get off kind of, because now I'm going into the black hole, right? Which is, and we talked about this when we got on, what I loved about we're all wearing black is, for me, I'm starting to look at black in such a different way than I've been taught, spiritually, in such a different way than I've been taught in the day-to-day world, what black represents. Because for me, it's a super powerful energy that I'm starting to now work with differently. So I think, Marilyn, I can't remember your question because I get so lost in the vibration of all of this discussion, that there's just so much more available to us than we recognize. And once we start, recognizing, oh, wow, when I drink my coffee in the morning, I'm just going to take a simple example. I drink my coffee. I'm going to close my eyes, breathe it in. I can connect now to the beans in Costa Rica where they came from. I can now connect to the plant in which they've grown. I can connect to the earth. All in that simple minute that I'm drinking my coffee, I have tapped into a complete different energy of what this coffee represents. And then, can move into the gratitude piece about the person who grew it, the person who picked it, the person who roasted it, the person that I bought it from, whatever. And you have tapped into what is available simply from that cup of coffee. If that makes sense.
It all makes sense. And what's interesting about that is it moves you into solution too. And I think people stay so focused on problem the way that we stay so focused on definitions of things. And when you open up to the beautiful belt you showed, and people don't see it just as a belt, they see it as so much more, then they see their life as so much more. And they don't get stuck in, people just habitually want to say, I don't have this. I like when I put out the post recently, and Don, I have a specific question for you, but make notes if there's something you want to say. When I put out the post, what is standing in your way? And people were like, and my answer internally was nothing standing in your way. Like, that's what I expected people to answer. And people were like, time, money, debt, this, that. And I was like, stop it already. Stop. If those things are standing in your way, then figure those things out. Figure out why your money is standing in your way. figure out what the story is. So Donna, I know you work with a very powerful group of people that are always in solution. So I'm kind of curious about what you want to add to the table here, but also it's like what Monique said, it's not linear. They're like bringing in all this expertise. Like, what do you want to say about this?
So I'm going to start with a little bit more about the, looking at things differently, right? And that, but I go to people. And so we know that I have a daughter who was born with developmental disabilities. I'll call them abilities, though, because she's probably stronger than most people that I know. And that, but, it was about, we could have gone by what they told us about her when she was 2 and 3 years old and said that, she would never have any capabilities and she would never be able to do anything. And we could have listened to that and we could have kept her confined and, gave her a minimal life. Instead, we pretended we never heard it. I looked at her totally differently. I looked at her from so many different dimensions, trying to understand, now, how did she get here? She's got something that we don't have, that we're not seeing. And what do we do about this? And so the approach I always took with her was, you don't listen to anybody else, you do what you can do. Right. And so she's turned into this fabulous young woman, adult woman. And, there's things that she doesn't quite get or think the way I do, but who said the way I think is right? Like you said, Monique, right? It's like, who said that I'm the example norm? Whoever came up with what normal was. And so it's really, we need to do it with people too, in that we tend to look at, the images that we've been given all our lives and say, okay, these are all the right images and this is normal and this isn't normal, but who says? And so when you challenge it, you start to see these different abilities that other people have, that I like in her. She has abilities I don't have. Spiritually, she has abilities I don't have. She's got energy going on in her head that's just not the same as the energy going on in my head. I love her for that. And it makes me appreciate how, when we put everybody together and we're unified, how great we can be. And so then I go to the boardroom and, the boardroom has been amazing, but, and I know who they are, but I don't share, right? But they see things differently than they did when they were here on Earth. And so all of the guidance that they give is divine guidance from where they are today, seeing where we need to go for the future. It's thinking about where we are and how we've evolved as a planet, as part of a bigger universe, as part of something still bigger than that, to where we need to go because we've lost our connection. And how do we bring that back? And how do we think differently? And how do we bring down some of the constructs that we've built that are stopping us, that are keeping us thinking in these isolated pools of being different rather than, uniting us and bringing us together. So
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Donna, finish your thought.
Yeah, no. So it's about, they really, their thought process is so different. They're so insightful. And a lot of times when I get those messages, I mean, I write, or, now Marilyn has me recording. She suggested I record and I do. Right. And so now, I go back and I listen and I go, whoa, wow. And I started going back to some of my earlier journals and go, whoa, this is really good. And it's all consistent. And it's a continuum. It's, it's continuing to grow, and the messages do change as we evolve, and sometimes more severe than others. And it's really a great way to see things.
So they're inventors, they're innovators, and so are we. And if everybody came into their life looking at themselves as an innovator and inventor, I think life would be a lot different. So the question I have for the two of you now, based on what you just said, this out-of-box thinking, how has it grown your gifts, your spiritual gifts? So I don't like to differentiate even spiritual from human gifts, because now we work them together, right? But I want to know how this out-of-box thinking, getting away from belief systems, recognizing that no one gets to define black for you. We didn't know we were all wearing black. We didn't have a conversation about this. And you'll be able to see it on YouTube for those of you who are listening. Not that it's anything special, we're all wearing black. But I'm curious how this has helped you to grow, because many people struggle with their growing their psychic gifts, and they struggle with it because they're stuck in a belief system. And that's one of the things that I'm going to say real quickly before I hear what you guys have to say is one of the reasons why I moved away from the crowds that I was in years ago when I just started like opening up and I started finding some people to study with. I found it very limiting because it was like, I'm this, you're that. And if somebody shined a little bit brighter than others, there was like this competition or jealousy, which I've spoken about before. But the other thing too, it was like, you have to do it this way. And I'm so grateful that I didn't find these people after working with my guides for a while, because my guides were like teaching me already. And they were like, get out of that group now, get away from it. So I'm just curious from your own perspective and how it can help someone else, how this open-minded thinking has helped you to grow who you are and where you're going. Like, you don't even know where you're going. You're not like a Reiki healer, and nothing against Reiki healers, I just use it. You're not a Reiki healer that's just staying a Reiki healer. And most Reiki healers aren't. So forgive me for, I'm not labeling that. But there are some people that just study a healing modality and they get stuck in the healing modality and they don't know how to go past it. They don't know how to grow with it. I know I just threw a lot at you, but go ahead. Monique, go ahead.
No, for me, so, the openness and is the expansion, right? So I mean, when I first started hearing the boardroom, I was like, am I really hearing this? Is this really going on? Who am I talking to? I was asking for signs so I could really identify people and got them. And I had to research them deep it wasn't stuff I knew, like to say, oh, this person, this is a symbol for them. I had to figure out why it was. And that started to build my confidence, right? But now, I mean, when I got the boardroom, I thought, wow, like this is utopia for me. Whoa, I'm like, and I'm so far beyond that. And the reason is because they continue being open. I feel like it's myself and my guides are stretching me to get to where they, where I need to be. They're continually pushing and pulling me by opening up my thinking and what I see and what I hear and all of those different things to broaden and expand all of my abilities. I don't know if that directly answers the question or not, but it's just, and then the dialogues that we have are really critical. And sitting even now, like the power that's coming through me is unbelievable. The energy, right? It's just because we're connecting in the way we're talking, it's growing me inside. It's this type of nourishment, I think, that we're looking for, and that it nourishes our soul, and our soul then raises us up to do more things.
Yeah, but it's also, you're talking about a trust of leaving the outcome alone.
Mm-hmm.
You're not looking for a specific outcome. You're allowing the process to, tell me if I'm wrong, the process to take place and take you where it's meant to take you.
Right.
Because you've said also, as you're working with them, and I think it's really good, by the way, that you don't share who they are, because right away people will get into labels.
Mm-hmm.
They will expect something to sound a certain way. And instead it allows you, and I've seen your work, which is very powerful. It allows you the freedom for now, it may change down the line, to give them messages and to let them work with you in an elevated fashion. Because even with deceased loved ones, when I'm talking to a deceased loved one, you have to, I did a thing on experiential mediumship. You can look at that podcast, Evidential. You have to give evidence that I'm speaking to somebody's father, but the father has grown in consciousness and the person wants the father to be the same way, and they're not.
Mm-hmm.
So I love how you just kind of described how you really are just being with them and allowing them to. And when we say allow our guides to guide the process, let me hear this, Donna, and I'm going to go to you in a second. It's not giving up your free will, though, correct?
Right. We can put our own controls and boundaries in. And I do. There are things that I say, that I'm open to, and things I say I'm not. And then as I grow, I change my boundaries, because I might be open to something that I wasn't before, because I have this trust and feel safe, and I know I'm protected by them and by the archangels that are protecting me, so that nothing's going to happen to me that's bad. They're taking me on a journey, and I'm going to love the journey.
Yeah, exactly. And when you build that trust, you do allow more freedom, which I like it. And that's great. And there's something I want to say about protection, but I'll say it later. Thank you for that. Monique, what do you want to share?
It's so interesting because I think, when I first started on this path as well, I mean, I studied different modalities and whatever, and it was all wonderful because it taught me what was available, but it also felt very limiting. And so once I stepped into the place of letting the energy guide me, regardless of what was going on with the person, regardless of what kind of energy, I'll just say people will talk about, entity energy or parasitic, it doesn't matter what label we put on it. To me, there's no set way to address anything. The energy guides me. And so once and I'll just take like room clearing, for instance, like there's all, people use sage and people use incense, and those are great, powerful tools. But for me, I was like, well, but this can't be it. And so once I started stepping into a room and talking to the room in the sense of, okay, what's the energy in here? What does it need? Regardless of what I think is appropriate, it doesn't matter. Once I got out of the way of having that communication with the energy, so much more started coming in. It's like, oh, well, this corner needs salt. Oh, well, this one needs, the violet flame, or this one needs a symbol or whatever. It doesn't matter. It just became so much easier because I have no expectations. I have no expectations because I trust enough now, whether I'm working on a person or, an animal, whatever, even though, like, and if you don't mind, can I talk about Venus for a second? Is that okay? Venus has surgery on her left leg. That's not where she's telling me to go. I am not touching her left leg. I am working completely somewhere else because I trust her enough. I trust myself enough, and I trust the energy enough to say she doesn't want that right now, maybe down the road. And so for me, once I got into that place of, oh my gosh, it became so much easier.
Yeah.
To say, okay, this may sound crazy. Like when I work with my clients, I'm getting you to pull out a picture of your, dog and stick it on your kidney. It sounds a little loopy, and I get that. But I trusted enough to understand that the energy is going to provide me the information I need.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And I'll just talk about Venus for a second. They said to me, you need to ice the incisions like 3 to 5 times. And I was like, she's not going to let me ice it. And I tried it for a second and she didn't want me near it. And I trust my dog enough to know that she's intuitively telling me those incisions, and it's got to be the work you're doing, Monique. They're healing beautifully. They are not swollen today. It's only 2 days later. The redness is going away. And I'm like, so it really goes to show, like, getting out of your way of what the expectations of what you're supposed to do, like letting the room speak to you. And what I feel all of this is that the three of us are talking about, and it's the biggest thing that I teach, is you are the instrument, right? So when we get out of the way and we're not following, like, it's great to learn the different techniques and tools. I think it's so great. And then learn what really works for you, mixing it in. Then you learn you're the instrument, you're the channel, you're the conduit. You're even more than that. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, and then I want to know if either of you have questions for the group, because you're both masters at what you do, but I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how people can be their own instrument in this work. And I think we've already said it, but if there's anything else you want to add about that. And to me, it's like, how important to get out of your own way and let spirit work through you is everything. I want to say one other thing. Sorry, you guys are just tripping up a lot of stuff in me. When people say to me they struggle with readings and how the person's going to receive it, and I'm like, it's none of your business. It's none of your business how the person receives it, because then you're getting in the way of the information. So anything you want to share with those two things, is whatever I said is fine.
I'll share a story.
Great.
So, I didn't work much with cards, but then I came across 2 decks that were used decks of cards. And I've told both of you, I think, the story, that the one I just couldn't leave the store without buying. They were a very different deck of cards. They were like before tarot kind of, they're just small cards, that 32 in the deck. came from Austria. For some reason, I was like, I know an ancestor of mine owned them. I have to have these cards. So I bought them, and I was using them. They were great. I loved those cards. And then I had another deck of oracles that I was using, and they were used. They just were in a store, and I felt like, oh, I need to buy these. I'm not sure why, but I need to buy them. So I buy them. So I was faithful to those decks. And one day they disappeared. And, it was in my house in Florida, where you have no basement, a little bit of space in the garage, no attic or anything. And I have torn that house apart and cannot find the cards. And so initially it really bothered me. And I was like, but I want my cards, right? Like, I don't feel like I need them, but I just want them. And the message was, you don't need them and you're not having them, kind of thing. To this day, so it's been probably about 8-9 months. I can't find these cards anywhere. And guess what? It was my lesson of, I don't need them. I already have what I need. And I wasn't relying on myself. So the question, the answer I think I'm getting to in this story is that you have to rely on yourself for the answers for you. And that the cards are tools. Yes, I'm not saying they're not bad, they're not good. But there's a point where maybe you become stronger than the cards, and you already have what they're telling you. More than that, and after that, the readings I was given, my friends were like unbelievable, and they made business decisions off of them, and they made money off of them. So it came out after I lost my tools. That's my story.
Yeah, that's such a great story. The tools are so great to help us it's almost like the little crutch that you need as you're building the muscles. And I love that they took them away from you. They're like, you don't need this anymore, because it's so true. I love that. That's great. Monique, what did you want to say?
Well, this is what I'm saying about tools, because tools for me are there for fun. And whenever I explain like my work to people, I say, life, my tools it's a banquet table, but it's a never ending banquet table. And so like one area may be crystals, another area may be symbols, another area may be food, essential. I mean, it doesn't matter, because, right, the world is infinite. And so there's just times you move in and out. This is the tool that feels like fun right now. This is the tool that this energy wants and needs. And so we have it all available to us, but there's no, again, and this goes back to like the protocols and the thinking there's a right and wrong. I just find that if that's where we stay, that wonderful buffet banquet table becomes very small. And because Donna, I'm like you, I've had crystals just disappear, gone. It's like, okay, well, I'm done with that one. Don't need that one anymore. And if I do need it, it will either reappear or it'll come in a different way. Or for now, I just bring in the frequency of it. But I think once and this goes back to, the beginning of the conversation, no one can tell you how to use your instrument. We can learn all these wonderful things, and we all have, and I'm so grateful. But at the end of the day, I know nothing about Donna's instrument. I know nothing about Marilyn's instrument, because I don't live in that instrument. And so I think it's really, which is, again, I'm going to circle back to NLL, whether it's NLL or any other group that allows you to be in your unique instrument and supports that, I think is such a critical piece. Because for me, I don't know how I would have gained the trust that I now have in my instrument and my abilities. I wouldn't have if I had just done this on my own. There's just no way. So again, and it goes back to what Donna was saying, to have these kinds of conversations where you are elevating. I mean, I could feel like my whole spine and up into my brainstem. I was like, yeah, there's so much energy. And so when you move into that vibration, for me, is when you really start to gain that confidence and go, this is what it feels like. And it feels so doggone good. So yeah, that's what I have to say.
I love that. And go ahead, Donna.
Oh, no, there was just one more piece I wanted to add too, and it's around the tools. And that's not, every tool is not for everyone, right? So, as you're looking at tools, don't think if one doesn't work for you, then there's something wrong with you. It's just not for
Yeah.
you. There's a different thing that you'll use, that you'll find that will be the right thing for you. And just be open, like Monique said, with the buffet table, just be open to all the possibilities out there so that you'll pick up the right thing at the right time for you. And one more piece about NLL, and that is that so much, in our initial lessons, it was like fireworks for me every time we met, because and it's not that it's not now, it's just different right now because we're doing such different things that I love. But it was back then, it was learning about my genius, my soul. Where is my soul? What's my purpose? Purpose is a big conversation today. I think we know it, right? But then we get to it, we find it. The message became clear. What am I here to do? It was my message. I found it, right? And so all of that came out of the things that we're doing in the classes, with everybody talking and sharing, and you leading us through the process, Marilyn, through the meditations that take us to different places that we haven't been before, and help us identify where things are in our bodies so that we can go back again.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking, and thank you for saying that. And that's why I want to do another town hall. We do town halls so I can check in with the group and find out what's working, what they need more of. And probably be good for me to go back to the initial classes and now take it to another level as well. And Monique and I, something you said, Donna, that's very important. Monique and I were talking about the color black yesterday, which I'm going to talk about scrying in a second. But when I was starting out, there were all like these psychic games to play. And I wasn't very good at a lot of the psychic games. And if I allowed that to dictate my ability, I would never be where I am today.
Right.
And I don't know if somebody said it to me, or it might have been my guides. Like, I think it was my guides. They were like, it's not, and somebody might have said it too. So I want to give credibility, but I don't know who it was. It wasn't about whether it was a yes or no. Like if you're pulling a regular deck of cards and you're supposed to pull the card without looking at it, is a black or red, and feel it. And that one I actually did pretty good at. And other ones I didn't. They said it's not about that. It's about learning how we're giving you information. And they were the ones who taught me like clairvoyancy and clairaudience, because that stuff wasn't really out there at that time. At least I wasn't accessible. So I want to talk about, there's two things I want to talk about. Well, we talked about scrying yesterday, which we're going to bring into next level living. And that's black cloth. And it's not something I'm very good at. That's looking into a crystal ball. So it's something that I want to practice with you. But what I wanted to talk about now real quick, and we're kind of running out of time, so we'll have to do a part 2, because I want us to go deeper into the conversations we go. This is like the surface type of conversations that we have. I'm going to bring up a topic that I know Monique and I are very passionate about. And I don't know your take on this, Donna. I have such issues with exams, tests that you take that position you in a box. I don't mind it being information, but it drives me insane. And I think people take like the human design, or I can't remember the enneagram, or even when people want to talk to me about what sun is rising and what is falling. And I'm not saying that any of that stuff is bad, because sometimes people get their chart done and they're like, oh, it makes sense now. But then they adhere to it in such a way that they're afraid to do anything else. Like I have a woman that I'm very close to, and she'll be like, this is the year where I have to ask for advice. So I have to ask for advice from everyone because that's what the horoscope says. And it drives me insane. So I want to know, because I have such a strong opinion about it. So I piss people off. I don't care really. I want to know your opinion on this and how you've worked with it. Because some people, like I said, you may like the human design. You may be like, when people say to me, what are you, a manifestor? I'm like, get the F out of my face. Like I am me. So, but it might help people. So what's done, I know Monique's experience, and I want her to talk about it too, but I want to know what you think about it, because I don't know what you think about this.
Yeah, so I am not a test person, but it's kind of coming from a different place. And it's from having a daughter that was judged based on her testing abilities.
Interesting.
And it takes me to a whole different place, because it was about separation rather than unity. And so because she tested a certain way, she was left on the sidelines. Right. And so those things are, I think, crippling, right, to not only to her, but to all of us around her who saw this totally different person than the one that took the test, right? Because her abilities on her own were so different than the way she tested. To me, that created maybe a bias, in the sense that it's got to be more than a test. It's just got to be. There's no test that can define who we are, can identify who we are in one swoop. And I'm sorry if I offend anybody with that, but we all have such varying and broad capabilities and abilities that, you can't get to a place where you say, this is who I am, without looking inside of you and really understanding this is who I am. And so I see it as a part of a bigger picture, maybe for people who are developing and they want something to help them, keep building in their abilities. It might put together pieces of a puzzle for them, but it's not the whole puzzle.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because it reminds me, and I want to be very careful of this as well when I say this, but certain diagnoses, and I'm not a doctor, so I would never say someone ignore the diagnosis, but maybe look outside of just, besides the specific treatment, see what else wants to be available to you, or what else wants to come through in that particular diagnosis. Because I see people being labeled by a diagnosis, and there's so much more, and then they adhere to it, and then it becomes, I can't do this because of such and such, I can't do that because such and this. And I have friends that have some of these diagnoses, and I see their struggles with it, and I respect it a lot, and I respect their approach to it. But I also see, like, one friend, a little bit more of an open-mindedness around it too. Like, how can I fix this, or how can I help it in another way? So I'm so glad you brought that up. And you're an expert at it, not me. Like, only
Yeah, I don't, and I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I'm a witness, right? And so,
yeah,
and it's and I've seen what positivity and optimism does for a person. And it's incredible. It's way more incredible than what any test ever did.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you for that. Monique, what did you want to say?
I'm gonna try to do this generally. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way, right? And again, it goes back to, where are we giving our power away? Why do we have to? And I'm not talking about Donna's situation, but just with these tests that I've taken them, they're fun, they're funny. It's just information. But my biggest question is, what are you using that information to do? Is it simply to say, this is a starting point, it's a launching point for me, fabulous? Or is it something, because I've heard people say, oh, well, I'm this, oh, well, I'm that. And I'm like, again, who says? Like, who says you're these things? We're everything. What do you want to be, and who do you want to be? Now, the reality is we all do have certain, personality traits. But do we have to put a label on it? I don't know. It doesn't give me comfort. I think for some people, it's a comfort place. It's like, oh, well, I behave this way because I'm a manifest, or whatever those tests say, or I can't do this because they say I'm a number 2 or whatever. And so for me, it's such an opportunity for self-examination of, what is the purpose, why you're relying on these tests, and personality, whatever, and B, what are you using it for? If you're using it to direct your life, you have just given your power away.
That's what I just wrote. Takes power away.
Yeah,
so
it's completely disempowering.
Yeah, unless, like you said, it's an opportunity where you look at something like, we have strong boundaries, all 3 of us, right? So I know that I'm somebody who can't be around people 24 hours a day, like for more than a certain amount of hours. And because of my sensitivities, whatever you want to say. So you have to, if these tests give you some kind of knowledge about yourself where you're empowered by it, but not an excuse, I think that's a little bit different. So.
Yeah.
I think it also comes back to how that person uses it. And I think, Monique, you're saying that, right? Like, it's about, you can give me the information. It's what I do with it that's really important.
Right.
Totally.
Because it's just information. It's just information. There's nothing is set in stone. Nothing. No. Unless we believe it is. And when we believe it is, that's how it becomes physical.
Right.
And that's how it becomes set in stone. which is a whole nother conversation.
I just wrote that down and I said, that's our next conversation, because the set in stone is what causes people to not develop their psychic abilities, human abilities. To me, they're the same things. They're gifts because they set things in stone. Like with you guys, when I was talking to Monique after yesterday's lesson was, I used the word quantum, and it's funny today, I just saw somebody write a post, what does quantum mean to you? Because people are overusing the word, and I don't even like using the word in the lesson. And we did the quantum something of abundance. I don't remember the title of the class, but I was like, wow, I want to take them back into clairvoyancy at a whole other level. So it's not like this is how I see and this is how I see today. How am I going to see tomorrow? There's so many more levels to the gift. So I wrote set in stone. I'm like, that's the next conversation. Donna, it looks like you're chomping at the bit to say something.
No, I'm not. I was agreeing with everything you said. That's all.
It's so fascinating, and that's where words get confusing. Okay, so we're going to come to a close because it's an hour already. What I would like you to do is tell everybody how they can reach you, and we will make sure that that's in the, I'm going to say this on the podcast, everybody can hear this. Make sure that Jess has this information so we can get it to the person who does the show notes, just so I don't forget. And then, is there a question you want to pose to everyone to help them think about themselves in a different way? Or help them think maybe even about the type of work you do, or if there's a question you pose to people, anything at all. I just would like to leave already with a question. And I didn't know I was going to do this, so I have to think of one myself, so that we can have people thinking about themselves in a greater, more expansive way. And any of you that are interested in next level living, you can go to marilynoloria.com/next and read about it. And then you can email us at care@marilynoloria.com and ask for the overview, and we'll send you the overview. You have to get on a call in order to get into that program. It's a application type of program, because we want to make sure it's the right program for you. It's not a waste of time for you, and that you're the right fit. And it's not you're not good enough type of thing. It's really, is this going to be the right thing for you? So that's the most important thing for me, because I don't like people coming into my programs and then they don't do the work, and it's just not a fit. So it's not good. Okay. I gave you a little time to think there. Who's got their question and wants to, and when you, before that, tell them how people can get in touch with you. It'd be great. Monique looks ready.
Go ahead, Monique.
Yeah, I'll go. Okay, so they can get in touch with me either through my website, which is moniquegarceau.com, MoniqueGarsaud.com. I also have an Instagram page that I'm developing, and yeah, so that's the best way.
Is that under your name too?
Yes, it's under the same thing. Or they can just email me, Monique@MoniqueGarceau.com, particularly for my healing work, because that's not really on my website. But this is my question. Next time you come up against something that makes you uncomfortable, I want you to ask yourself, what is the story you're telling yourself?
Love that. Next time you come up against something that, say this question again so we can repeat it.
That causes you discomfort.
What is the story?
What is the story you're telling yourself?
Love it. Great. Okay, Donna.
So you can reach me at donna@bethedifference.global, which is an email address, soon to be a website under bethedifference.global. And let's see. So my question is this: as you look inside, deep inside yourself, in quiet, and are only listening to yourself, what is it that you hear that is truly about you?
Love that. Repeat it.
I don't know if I can.
I can probably do it for you. As you look inside, deep inside yourself, what is it that you hear about yourself? Is that correct?
Correct. Listening only to you. Only to you. What's the first things you hear about yourself?
Love that. It's going to go on mine thing. Well, you all know how to reach me, marilynoloria.com. But most importantly, if you're interested in next level living, even if you think you're not ready for it, reach out to us. We don't do hardcore sales. Again, I'm really, really care about the best thing for you. And so if you're interested in joining, check it out, marilynlauria.com/next, or email me at care@marilynlauria.com. My question to you is, if you were to take the quiz that would tell you exactly who you are, that would bring you joy and happiness and passion, what would that quiz tell you? What would be the answers in the quiz? What is the quiz? How is the quiz defining you? You define yourself on your own quiz. Okay. It is hard when you come up with a question because it's coming through us and we don't know how to recall it. Thank you guys so much. I really, really appreciate this. I appreciate all your wisdom and everything. And thank you everyone for listening. Remember to rate, review, subscribe, share, come out of the closet and share. And to rate and review, if you go to Apple Podcasts, go to the show, not the episode. And if you go to the show and you scroll down, you'll see the stars and you can rate and review there. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day or night whenever you're listening to this. Bye. Everybody say bye.
Bye.
Bye.